Quality education and employment are crucial for a meaningful life, offering countless opportunities to not only learn and grow, but contribute more effectively to the communities around them. This ensures a thrivable future where everyone can live in harmony. That's why we've invited three experts on these fields to uncover exciting discoveries around creating meaningful education and employment opportunities for all. They are Lucy Howe López, the Deputy Executive Director of Globethics, an ethical leadership not-for-profit organization; Monika Kulshrestha, the owner and founder of Deals Colony, a dynamic business venture which leverages hobbies into businesses; and Nick Takavadii, the director and co-owner of Percolab Co-op, a social enterprise focused on developing new ways of working, governing, and learning. After their presentations, they kindly took questions from the audience.
I'd like to thank our guests again for sharing their valuable knowledge and experience with us. And as I always say, with step by step and drop by drop, we'll certainly make a big change for the thrivable future. With that, we move on to the first question, which is open to our three speakers, and anyone can take the stage to answer first. So, my first question is: most of us in this room will acknowledge the fact that providing quality education has been a challenge in many underprivileged areas. With that being said, please share any example or any experience that you had in the past or recently of a successful initiative that has improved the education in such areas. Thank you.
Okay, so as I was presenting in my slide, one of the thing we were doing with one of the child, he was suffering through ADHD and different other things. When I started this initiative for young people, it wasn't about, including everyone. It was just about, it started with friends and family kids, and then it started evolving. But, since it started expanding and, other kids started coming along as well. So we did the same strategy, give them a lot of boost and confidence by giving them, opportunities to present their thing, talk about their things. And doesn't matter if they are suffering from any sort of illness or not. If anyone give opportunities to anyone, they will thrive in the future. So it's just a matter of giving them, sort of a chance to talk about it, even though they are not 100% talking nicely or they don't know what to say. Just, fill in the gaps so that they get that, courage to, continue and, complete their sentence as well. So in our one of the monthly meetings we used to host, we used to do these sort of things where kids were coming, sharing their ideas, and we had those sort of things as well. No one will laugh on in anyone, because anyone can be in the bad position sometimes. Doesn't matter if they are privileged or underprivileged, doesn't matter. It's just the humanity point of view, we teach kids about that, and ethically.
I'm on a WhatsApp group from my old boys' school. Academic results for A level have just come out, and there's a big debate around the question of quality education. What is quality education? The schools are flaunting the results of the pass rates within the school. And there's this argument that kids are being taught to cram and memorize to pass the exams. So what is quality education? I just know, to answer your question, I know of some initiatives that are going around that. For example, there's a school that is in formation in Shorehaven in New South Wales. I think it's called Blue Mountain School. We've been working with them. They're really working at the foundation of the school being like an alternative school with different ethos and values. I also had the privilege of experiencing the Kufunda Learning Village in Zimbabwe, where the schooling is not just limited to the academic. It's a permaculture center, and there's all sorts of learning that is happening there. And then also, again, I'll just pick from the same place again. We had a program at Kufunda Learning Village that we codenamed Communiversity, which was an education program for youth from the different poor communities. They would come to the center and they would learn about life, about leadership, as well as the education element of it. So, quality education, what exactly defines that?
In terms of quality education, I mentioned also the importance of ethos, and that it's not only about learning subjects, that it's about character building, and it's for life. It's about learning how to learn, and stimulating that curiosity. You spoke about that, Monika. That's bringing all those lovely possibilities and potential out and in a safe space. No, so yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Lucy. I'll just add on one more thing. Many people confuse between qualification and education. So for education, it can even start from your home with your parents. That's it. And can make you a better person in the life. So qualification doesn't really define you as a good person or a better person, but education does. So thank you for sharing your views on that. Just before I move ahead and ask further questions, I like to ask our audience to drop in their question in the chat. And while doing so, please remember to mention your name, location, and email address so that we can connect with you after the webinar get over. During the closing segment, we will announce the best question asked. So stay tuned and do drop in your questions in the message or chat. Lucy, I'll come to you first for the first question. Target 4.1 emphasizes on promoting free and primary education. Could you share your thoughts on some of the challenges in doing so? You can take up any example to express your thoughts. Thank you.
Yes, I referred to it in general terms, but critical in this are the qualified teachers. And I was just about to post on the chat actually, but we're the first. I mean, I'm a parent. I have 3 boys. We have 3 boys, and we know how important it is to. So we're talking about primary education, and pre-primary, I think, is so critical. So in that regard, the qualified teachers, so targeting teachers where they're at and their kind of formation that they have. They may have 1 year, they may have no training. It's always a surprise for me in the private education system in the UK, which is paid big bucks for. They don't necessarily require their teachers to have a teaching qualification. They take them on board as they've done a first degree or a second degree, and that's enough somehow. But teaching is not only about the subject. It's not only about knowledge acquisition, which is where the challenge, some questions were coming in earlier about AI. So the challenge of that, but having this ready, all this knowledge at hand, so you can, put out an essay or a report at the touch of a button, but you're not learning anything. You don't know anything about the subject. You're just ticking a box and submitting an assignment. So to bring that back, in terms of re-owning what it means to deeply learn, and that's so inspired by, I mean, Monika's project there and your whole enterprise is such a great example of bringing it back, because we forget how to talk to each other. And so when I was challenged by Nick and all of you were, what does your world of work look like? It looks a bit like this. Being on this webinar, and I'm a bit sorry I can't see everybody else, so we can, see each other's faces, because that's so important.
Thank you for your thoughts. Monika, I'll come to you. So during your presentation, you mentioned the negative impacts of prolonged screen time on young kids. In fact, everyone in this room is no different in having gone through that similar kind of experiences one way or the other. So could you talk through an example where this was successfully dealt with?
It's about the creating an environment, supporting environment where kids can talk about negative, positive, their failure, their proud moments, everything. Not just about, I'm doing the best thing. We actually encourage to talk more about their challenges. And that's where we are kind of building that sort of environment that, we don't laugh on others if you don't agree, because everyone has got different ways of, expressing themselves and doing different sort of things, depending on their value system of their families or, different culture and those sort of things. So in our thing, what we do, we actually divert them and connect them with the goal setting things. In one of the chat, I think Mariam was mentioning about, playful, creative digital games based on thrivability goals for kids. So in that sort of line, basically, so for example, one kid wanted to become best in basketball. Other wanted to do in public speaking, so, these sort of things they were talking about, but they were a bit shy because they were thinking, if I'm saying that if I can't do it, what would happen? And this is the problem as a human we face, because we say it, we want to do it, but we don't have proper action plans. And we, like, life happens, things happen, and we can't do it. So the way we do it, we help them with goal setting, create, set up their little actionable items. And then every week or month, whenever we meet, we ask them to do our live video on our Facebook group, for example. So this is how we were using technology, and especially social media. And we are diverting this social media use into something productive rather than just watching and scrolling others' content. We are actually giving them opportunity. Okay, you can be a hero. And then, of course, we talk about, how to say things, what not to say, because of privacy, because of, different sort of things, bullying and all those sort of things might happen as well. So we talk about all these things as part of our onboarding process. And I think this is so far working. We connect them their goals and we give them rewards. So whenever they achieve something, we give them rewards. So they will choose what sort of things they want. Even they will say, I want that type of game, because they are into online gaming as well. And someone will want, that sort of, the t-shirt, that jersey, or, depending on their interest. So we provide those sort of support, and we give them free of charge, whatever they need once they achieve their goals. So all the rewards and recognition, we provide them. So this works for us.
Thank you, Monika. I think if we can summarize this in one word, I think the motivation factor is the important thing, that you have to have some kind of motivation factor that drives all these needs. Now go to Nick. During your presentation, we had a slide where you talked about the horizontal leadership. Please help us better understand the difference between horizontal leadership and the other styles of leadership models. If you can cite any example, maybe any organization that is popular and successful and following the horizontal leadership and not the other tradition.
Thanks for that. Horizontal leadership is, you can call it shared leadership. You can call it TEAL. You can call it the future of work. You can call it servant leadership. You can call it whatever you call it. But what it is really is about being able to bring where the leadership is not concentrated at the top. And the definition of the leadership is broader. Everybody is in their leadership, and everybody is in their autonomy, such that even their own development, it's not declared from up above. When people engage, they determine what they want to learn, what the learning edges are, and they choose where they want to go. I'll give as an example Percolab itself. If we have a project coming up, we actually poll to see if there's energy, if there are people that are interested in being in that work. So people are actually choosing to be in the work. Then we set up a project team. And within that project team, there are roles. So instead of job descriptions, you have roles. And roles are not owned by someone. They rotate. And they can be taken, one in a learning capacity, they can be taken in a holding capacity, or they can be taken in just a supporting capacity. Decision making. Usually decisions are made from above. In the horizontal leadership, decisions are made together, but there are processes that are covered within the 7 domains of practice, which are one can pick up and use for an appropriate situation. So a number of people might think, because other terms that are used, and we try not to use those terms because they sort of confine what the practice is, and when it's much broader. But if you can see the subtitle of that book, Going Horizontal, it actually says, Going Horizontal, changing the organization one practice at a time. So you don't even have to have the whole organization declared like what's happening now. Oh, we're going through a transformation. even if you are sitting in a triangle, you can start practicing your leadership within that hierarchical structure. And as you practice, when we practice, we become. And it's all centered. So other thing that describe it is the learning and development and the ethics. Horizontal leadership is really about all those values. You also mentioned the companies. There are a number of companies that are like big organizations that are practicing. It may not be exactly they're situational in the way they practice. For example, if BASOG, which is a hospital system, we have community organizations that I've been working with that are practicing that. We have the school. I mentioned the school, the Blue Mountain School. It is being set up on the horizontal practices. So horizontal practices, as much as they're in the organization, they can scale to the education as well. How you conduct the class. Is the teacher the holder of the knowledge, or is he the facilitator and holder of the space?
Thank you for sharing those insights and information. I'll try and squeeze in one question from the audience. And it's from Praise from Zimbabwe. And she asked, how are we going to balance the gap in education to determine quality education? We have children who are already advancing into the digital era, and we have children who are still struggling to access basic education. How we can balance this gap?
Yeah, I can give you an example about that. They in the Nordic countries, they have a reputation for being very forward-looking in their education. You know, they were Montessori before Montessori. They and also schools in Japan where you've got kids doing what they should do when they're kids, not sitting down in a chair for hours, but running around and in a kind of natural space, Zen gardens and what have you, but very active. So in Sweden, there was a school that opted very quickly for being totally digital. No paper, no textbooks, just everything online, everybody with their own laptops. And they tried that for about 3 years and they've gone back to paper. And it's a really interesting experience because, and they were explaining it, they were realizing that the students were no longer able to read as well. You know, they weren't having the same exposure because reading a book is something very kinetic. You know, it's something you touch it, you read it, you can smell it, you remember. I don't know, people have different kinds of memories. I have a visual memory. So when I think of a book, I think of the cover and I think of if it's digital, it's just like a white screen or a black screen with white type, and you don't have that same tactile experience. So that's super interesting for me because in this there's so much talk about, give every child a laptop, every child has a device, give them textbooks, give them something to read, give them stories. Nick was talking about stories, and we need to hear stories and we need to read stories because this increases our vocabulary and our imagination, and it makes us grow. So spending time doing that, and that's the same with, I posted there in the chat and something I heard recently about encouraging people to be creative before being reactive or passive. That means not grabbing for your phone first thing in the morning, and I do it, so I'm challenged to do this. Certainly what's notifications have come in, what's happened with Trump or whatever it might be. No, put all that away, do something you love first thing in the morning, not with anything to do with the device. And that sets you up for the whole day. And the same with kids, and they're also very disturbing. We haven't mentioned it very much, is cyberbullying, and how that destroys people. And it's so powerful because the bullies themselves don't see the person. So they're at a distance and they don't feel the impact. They don't have the eye-to-eye contact, which means that they have any kind of empathy with what the person is suffering. And they don't really care somehow because they're at a distance. And so that's when people become, this is something I'm so convinced of, when people or anything else become objects, stop being subjects, that's when bad things happen. That's the same with, conflicts and war, when people are being treated as objects, as units somehow. And it can happen in an organization, which is why I'm so loving hearing what Nick's saying about this horizontal shared leadership, because it means everybody's equal, that they're all in it together.
I think the I don't know if the people have heard about the inner development goals. What is really key is not to confuse the learning of the technology of the day with the learning that is needed for the future. So to bridge that gap, I really think there's a need to tweak the education system itself, capacitate the teachers or facilitators, so that where there's limited access to those resources, at least the teachers can access them maybe through a phone and so forth, which can be very, some of those places can be reachable. And to really focus on teaching some of those inner development goals to the children, because once the key thing is learning how to learn. That is what is important now. When I was in school, keeping the knowledge in my head was like the key thing, but learning how to learn. And once the kids are capacitated with that, when they time or when they move into other situations, they may be able to pick up and learn some of that technology. But yes, there will be gaps. But I think let's focus on what really matters, because some of what we're thinking they're missing out on, like Lucy has mentioned, can actually be distractions.
What I would highlight here, technology is the must thing in this world because we all are going into globalization. So we need to teach kids how to responsibly use those, technology. So Yuvan, I think she was just he, sorry, we're talking about it, and I think it's like AI nowadays or social media nowadays. It's concerning. I'm not denying into that, but this is how our responsibility to teach young kids about how to use it. This is what I was explaining about the calculator. When we first started using calculator in the beginning, in the previous generation, they were saying, oh, kids won't be able to use their brain, they can't do the mathematics and this and that. But now it's an integral part of it. Similar things with any technology, doesn't matter it's AI or social media, it's everything is, I will consider in the bucket of digital tools. So we need to use those digital tools in a way so that kids are getting productive rather than just sitting and then using and copying and pasting or watching things. We need to train them just to use them properly in a way so that they are learning ethically, not just for show off or just to cyberbullying just to make others down. So these are I think the moral and ethically we need to teach, and all other things will fall in place anyway if we teach kids about the value system and ethics and everything. And it has to come from the top level, because if we just do it on our level, no one will care. It has to come from government or the big people like Facebook and LinkedIn, those, like, even beyond that. Otherwise we are not going to thrive in this digital world, because like I was explaining in this graph, 35% schools only they are teaching digital literacy. They are not, others are not talking about any digital well-being or mental well-being. What would happen to remaining those percent? And there's a big gap. So that's why it has to come from top level. Otherwise, we would be having those sort of discussions. Nothing will change. Things will change only people are like myself or Lucy, Nick. We will be doing in our corners trying to do it, but we will be doing it until I don't know when, until unless we get the top people to get involved and then start supporting those sort of initiative about the responsibility, how to ethically use those sort of digital tools or whatever, social media or AI, anything.
Yeah, if I may, thank you. That's a really interesting point. And I'm thinking of this very recent decision announcement by Meta, Facebook, by the CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, saying they're taking away, as Trump's coming into power, they're removing the monitoring function that they had and censorship. And then with the idea that the users themselves monitor and police. And Elon Musk with X has done a similar thing where posts are kind of monitored with and controlled with community notes. So relying upon the community to do it. But I think you're absolutely right. It needs to be done in a systematic way so that the most awful abuse is taken out. And they talk about post-traumatic stress syndrome for all of those people in Kenya and other places who've been monitoring Facebook content. Horrifying content No, they have this trauma, and that nobody needs to see that. It shouldn't even be being done. And what I'm also concerned about is the increasing what I'm seeing. I mean, I'm scrolling fairly often. I'm seeing an increasing amount of AI content, AI generated content, but it's not declared as such. And at the moment, it looks weird enough that you think, oh, that's not real. But that won't be long before you think, well, maybe it is. So much misinformation going on. And I think you're absolutely right. The tech bosses themselves can't throw it over to the EU or to the US to monitor it for them. They have to do it.
There has to have some sort of a thing. As a human, we like to talk about, what is in and that type of thing. We need to connect those sort of things in a way. If you are following this value system, you will get awarded or rewarded or people will appreciate. But if you do this, you know, so we have to make that sort of things on the top level. So just to make all these value system go down to the all the community level and of course to the young generation, because parents, if whatever parents are doing, kids will follow as well. And in my experience, I have seen as well, parents even they have accepted using digital use because they are so busy doing their own thing and they think, oh, it's okay, let them do, because they are not listening to us anyway. Why to waste our energy and time? Sometimes it's okay. As a parent, we all need that sort of a space. But if it's a habit, then there is a problem. And if we have accepted that big problem, not to tell them how to navigate these digital, challenges, of course, imagine how the next generation would be after 20 years. Clueless.
When you look at technology, both its challenges in lack of access to it and also too much access to it and the abuse of it, which is why the inner development goals come in very useful for bringing us back into internally who we are. It's like a kitchen knife. It can be a good tool, it can be a bad tool. But if we have not addressed who we are going to either not use it properly, or we're going to abuse it, or we're not going to cut our vegetables properly, whatever the situation is.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Monika, for contributing your thoughts to that question. I'll come to another set of questions, but this will be focused on SDG 8. So, Lucy, I'll ask one question to you. Because you touched upon artificial intelligence, there's a lot of buzz around the artificial intelligence that it will take away jobs. How do you see this influencing the job creation and decent work globally?
Thank you. That's a really good question, and it's a legitimate concern, and it's something that's under a great deal of study. Yeah, billions have been invested in AI, and those who've invested in it, it's a business model. They've let it go for free. Everybody's contributed to it, by growing the data. I think one of the issues with it is the misappropriation. Well, it's data mining, and it's kind of shameless in the sense there are concerns about IP, intellectual property, copyrights. Margaret Atwood, the famous author, was saying, she's written 55 books or something. She said, why do I need to write anymore? They've got all my books online. If you give the command, write a book, like Margaret Atwood, they'll come out with, with an entire novel in my style. Why do I need to write anymore? This is, what about all the others? So, and then in the workplace too, we don't need translators anymore. We don't need editors anymore. There are all kinds of jobs that are becoming a bit obsolete. We just need to check documents now. When you can run translations, use your chatbot or whatever, ChatGPT, Bard, whatever. So it's a legitimate concern. And as far as education, that's still, the adaptation still has to be made. As Monika said, it's a great tool. It's still not clear how we're going to use it. It changes entirely the way that schoolwork is assessed. So that means that homework you can't. So then it has to be done in a way that's recognizing that. And I've seen adverts online saying, don't stress if you've got you've done your AI generated essay and your teacher's got the tools. We've got the tools to get around that. so there's massive amounts of cheating going on. No matter what you do, it's like playing whack-a-mole. You're trying to get or putting the fire out that keeps going on. So in terms of there are UNESCO and the EU and OECD and others have come out with AI and ethics regulations. The EU Act is just coming into force. And to go back to your original question about the effect on economic progress, it means that jobs just change. And courses, the education system, the higher education system and training, vocational training is changing accordingly. There are more service jobs, for example, and more programming is still needed. And one disturbing thing about this in terms of thrivability is the impact on the environment, because the carbon footprint of AI is massive. You do one search and they say it's the equivalent of this much. I don't have the figures exactly in mind, but it's massive compared to a simple internet Google search, because you need all those servers and they need to be kept cool, and they're holding all of this data. So there's no quick answer, but there's responsibility around that of the companies that are investing so much, and what the trade-offs are. And there's a lot of energy going into mapping the consequences right now. And we're not there. We're not quite seeing the end of the tunnel yet in terms of what it will mean for economic growth, positives and negatives.
Thank you, Lucy. Well said. AI is the next thing which needs to be tracked properly. Otherwise, it will just go out of hands.
Recently, someone sent me something on LinkedIn. It's like a job role. It was about, training AI. So somehow they found my profile and then they had asked me to apply for that thing. And then you can choose the category like programmers, just content or whatever. There are heaps of it. And they will give you, worksheets, which you will, answer. And then you will see the response of AI, chat GPT or whatever. And that's how there are new roles getting created just to train AI now by humans. So, yeah. So this is something new. It's like a evolving and disruption all the time. One thing creates something else. So yeah.
This technology is here and we have to embrace it. But there are a number of people out there, including us in Percolab as well. If you look up the work of Joanna Massey, promoting to move from despair, because there can be a lot of negative thinking, but through practices like going horizontal practices and other ways, we can turn, this is like the organizations as well as everybody that is in it. The more we bring more people to be working equitably and thinking about the human beings and thinking about the impact on other people, the more this technology can be channeled in a positive way and away from the negatives that it can bring about.
Thanks, Mick. There was a famous American, Larry King. He once said, "Nothing I say this day will teach me anything," which simply means one should be a good listener. So what are the key strengths one should develop to become a good listener and ultimately become a good leader?
I have one word answer for that: practice. What we practice, we become. And we have one mouth, few ears. Even myself, I'm still in learning. So that game that I mentioned, the Listen For game, we actually, even within Percolab, we practice it. And it's simple. It's a card for a storyteller and some cards for listeners. And there's some guidelines. As simple as that. And it's a very powerful tool, not only for practicing listening, but within organizations for connecting. Or when you're bringing new people, a new team coming together. It's surprising. I've had people that have worked together for a long time and only to discover maybe going to the birthday party at somebody's house that they didn't know that person. We are in our offices 8 hours or more. So it is very important to listen. It's not only for the leaders, but even for everybody in the organization. And listening is one of the skills that are very underrated, and they are a powerful tool to everything that we do.
Right, Juliet. Thank you. Monika, I'll come to you. We've been talking about the education of kids, how they can learn things either through books or through technology. What role can parents play in their kids' life in creating a balanced and responsible approach to technology? I know that you've been talking about on behalf of your organization, but what do you expect from the parents?
Yeah, so parents, first of all, should be a role model. So, for example, if kids are, watching and all the time on mobile phone, and we are telling them not to use mobile phone, and but we are checking our Facebook or socials and doing knick-knack, they will not going to listen to us. Never. So that sort of things, we always think about it. Whatever we are saying to kids, are we doing those sort of things or not? If we are not, that's okay. As a parents, we sometimes need to do it, whatever Facebook or whatever kids are saying, why you guys are doing it, why I'm not allowed to do this sort of things. So there should be a open communication. Open communication is the key. And also set the expectation that we are parents, we work, we have that much time, and this is the only time I can check my Facebook, Instagram, or whatever they are whinging about. So we need to answer their questions whenever, if they are saying whatever we are asking them to do it. If they say something, you are doing it, why should I do? There has to be a open communication. This way we are going to see and listen what they're talking about, why they are talking about. Maybe it's just if it's a normal thing, that's fine, but maybe it's just coming from a social pressure, where other kids are watching and playing and talking about, oh, I've got this new game, oh, I've got this new shoes, this expensive thing. And but our kids, they are not able to talk to us because of we are so busy, or we don't financially secure, or whatever it is. So open communication is the key. As a if you talk about it, what parents should do, always talk to your kids, always. And maybe that time you guys are busy, so tell them, yes, we are going to talk about it because we have 10 minutes only at the moment. I don't have more time, but we will talk over weekend or this, or maybe take them to the coffee. Not coffee, but they are kids. If, just for a breakfast or whatever it is, so that they feel privileged and they feel valued as well. That my parents is not always saying me do this, but they are also giving me time, good time, and then discussing. So it's a open communication is the key. And also, don't do something which you think your kids shouldn't do it. For example, I have noticed, because I'm talking about all the practical side of it, because my initiative is more about personalized thing. It's a human psychology and all those sort of things. So if we are on the phone, we are chit-chatting and then gossiping around, what kids will do? Kids will do the same thing. They will learn same sort of behavior. So, we have to be mindful what we are doing in front of kids. Outside, when they are not there, that's fine. You can be whatever you want, but you have to be a good role model. And sometimes you do bad things as well. That's fine, because you don't have to tell them everything has to be perfection, on the perfection level. Because later down the line, they might have those depression and anxiety issue, because they get used to it. I have to be best in everything. And after a while, we all know life doesn't, go that when you are all the time best of everything. So that means we have to teach them as well. See, this is what I couldn't do it, but I will try until I get it. So that sort of strategy, we also teach them about their failure. So mostly discuss about the failure point of view. This is what my strategy is. Good thing will happen anyway. Why do we need to teach good thing? Everyone is talking about good thing at school here and there. The only challenge is no one is talking about the challenges, what they are suffering through, what their challenges are, what they don't know how to express themselves because of those all the social pressure, all the social media influence. It's like even parents are very strict sometimes as well. You should do this. And sometimes I do it for my son, and he just, talk to me, and we have, discussions around it. But that's fine. But this is how, I take this strategy, which I was talking about with my personal experience, that how, this sort of conversation is happening, how we can use this conversation to help other kids as well. And of course, this works because, everyone is suffering from those sort of challenges, looks like, in the parenting and all those sort of things. So my thing is open communication as a parents, good role model, and, don't do something which you think your child shouldn't do it.
Just to add one more word to the last point, I think discipline is very important from the parent side.
Yes.
So if you're more disciplined, you influence your kid in that way.
Yes. And also, I would like to say one more thing I hear a lot, especially with the Asian parents. I don't know about others as well. It's about you guys are so privileged. You have everything. In our time, we didn't have this. Never use such things. I mean, I wouldn't, because I was a rebellious child as well, because my mom used to say all the time, do this, do that. And I used to ask question and no one was giving the answer. So this is the thing as well in my background as well. I thought about it. Kids must be thinking that way, like do this. Why? I haven't got this one. You are so privileged. It's not my problem. In this world, I have got all the things. Why do I need to do things which you were doing? It's not their fault. So don't tell those sort of things to them, because it might upset them. Because all other, their friends, they are doing those sort of things anyway. And if we are just pushing them, they won't listen to us after a while, and they will do behind our back. That would be the problem. And that's where open communication is the key, and your word selection. Just use those word selection the way they understand it. Google it. What are the trending word to talk to your teen, or whatever your child age group is all about.
If I may add to that, also, I was looking at the Q&A and the question from Praise about ensuring that children get the basic education they need. I would also say that parents be advocates for their children in this, that they push and they work with other parents and with the schools to make sure that they've got the materials they need, that they've got the teachers they need. I mean, to be active on the parent-teacher councils in the schools. Most of them have them. And to insist, for the good of everybody, that their kids and everybody else is getting a quality education.
And also, I would just say sometimes we need to give them pressure. Not always, of course. As a human, we also need that, peace. I have done everything. It's nothing in my plate. But sometimes giving pressure is good, because when they grow up, we won't be there with them. And they will be, struggling that time if they don't know how to handle or navigate those pressure and challenges. So we need to tell them the pressure, at the same time help them slowly and gradually, by not letting them know that we are trying to help. Just, give them the taste. Otherwise, when they go out, move out, get married, kids, they are going to struggle. I mean, I would say like that. So pressure is sometimes important. I would admit, not always, but sometimes, yes.
Already you mentioned modeling. This is monkey see, monkey do. I would add, find some practices that help to keep you connected with your child, relationship-wise, which is beyond the parent-child relationship, but more. I'm not saying be friend, be your buddy, but there's that connection that you need, and there are some practices that you can have and you can bring in. And for example, that listen for game, it's quite a very simple exercise that you can play with, and so it's really hearing what they are, and then their direction of them also needs to be driven by what they are inclined, what their preferences are. Obviously, as a guardian, as a parent, you have a role to help them in that, but don't think for them. Create a situation to allow them to think for themselves, and you support them through that.
Thank you for that very informative session. I know I was enjoying it. I know you guys were enjoying it. And for sure, the audience was also enjoying this conversation that we were having. Now, because there is a shortage of time, and I like to restrict this session over here. And but I would request our speakers to answer the questions offline. We'll be sharing it soon with you. And to our viewers, do sign up to our new newsletter to get access to the latest updates and the Q&As. Thank you very much.